For the next week, the Senate is going to be debating what I consider to be, and I think most people consider to be, the most important bill of the year, the National Defense Authorization Act. It's an act that we passed and have passed every year for 60 years. And in just a few days, the American families across the country will be celebrating the 4th of July, Independence Day, the day that honors our blessings of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not all countries share these values. In fact, they reject them. China and Russia would rather have an authoritarian world, one where democracy doesn't exist, where the rest of the world yields to them. According to the National Defense Strategy, and this is the document that I refer to all the time because this was put together a few years ago. Actually, 12 really expert in Democrats and 12 expert Republicans came into an agreement on what our defense should look like in the future. And so they said at that time, they said that China and Russia, in this book, are our greatest threat right now. They're building up their militaries, expanding their influence around the world. Fiscal year 2021 National Defense Authorization Act is about sending a message to China and Russia, and it says there's no way you can defeat us, so don't try. And that's a pretty blunt message. We couldn't have sent that message 2 years ago. We've been building up. We're still not where we should be. We know the way that we preserve peace is by demonstrating our strength, and we have the best military in the world, and our enemies need to know that. But we can't rest on our laurels. We've got to implement the National Defense Strategy because our comparative military advantage is at risk right now. China and Russia are actually catching up and surpassed us in some areas. And here's one big reason, that is that China and Russia have invested in their military. Now, this is a shocker when you talk to people because they don't expect it. I learned many years ago, or at least I believe, that we had the best of everything. This is ever since World War II. And it was true for a long period of time, but they've increased their military spending in China during the period of time between 2009 and 2018 by 83%. I mean, that's remarkable. Russia has grown its budget by 35%. Now, during that same period of time, from 2010 to 2015, for that 5-year period, during the Obama administration, we reduced our military by 25%. Now, think about that. China increased theirs by 83%. We reduced ours by 25% during that same time period. And don't forget, these countries willfully mislead on many things, including the actual size of their defense budget. Russia is almost 3 times larger than most people think it is. They look at it and think, well, ours is larger than theirs. It's just, we don't get accurate information, and we know what are the threats that are out there. Now, because of these investments, China and Russia have grown not just the size of their military, but the capabilities as well. Last October, China paraded a hypersonic weapon. I remember that so well because that was live on TV. We saw it. I saw it on television. And the hypersonic, that's the state of the art. That's both offense and defense. And they had it up there. Some people said they were maybe faking it. But no, I believe they had it. It was in a parade, and they showed that they had something that we don't even have. We don't have it yet. Their investments aren't restricted by their borders. I've seen their buildup in action across the world. One prime example, China recently built its first overseas military base. It was in Djibouti. Now, prior to this time, in Djibouti and throughout Africa, there was nothing. There were a lot of Chinese presence, but not a military operation. In fact, historically, the military operations from China have always started and were evident in their own city limits. I mean, this is what it worked. Not in Djibouti, not in northern Africa, because it was a major. In fact, I actually flew over it, the area. It was supposed to be a restricted area. And so there's China over there in Africa where they'd never been before, in Djibouti, and not just Djibouti, but all the way into southern Tanzania. And so that's what is going on right now. That wasn't going on before. Now we see China and Russia grow more and more aggressive and antagonistic. China in particular has used the pandemic to lash out in every direction. They've antagonized and harassed the Taiwanese, the Vietnamese, the Indonesian vessels in the South China Sea, and used every tool that they could do to harass them. But what they're doing in the South China Sea, and I did witness this, they did something that most people don't know is going on. China has actually built seven islands. And when you see what they have on these islands, they don't hide it. It's as if they're preparing for World War III. Now we saw 20 Indian soldiers, they're dead, killed by what are essentially baseball bats with spikes when the Chinese conducted a military incursion in territory claimed by China. That just happened. I called and talked to their ambassador and gave them our condolences. But that's what China is capable of doing. Meanwhile, Russia continues to prop up the murderous Assad regime. Putin has sent mercenaries to Libya and throughout Africa. Both countries have been supporting the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. We've seen warning signs of this for at least a decade, but meanwhile, the previous administration let our military take advantage and actually eroded. For 8 years, we had a president where the military was not a top priority. I respected him because he had other areas where he thought were more significant. And of course, he was president of the United States, and he did it. So we got to remind you of what I just said a minute ago. We went down by 25% between the 5-year period of 2010 and 2015. At the same time, Russia was increasing by 35%. We were reducing 25%. They were increasing. China increasing by 83%. Defending America wasn't his top priority, but he was honest about it, and we just learned that we're areas that we're falling behind. Now we've started turning around. Now we have a president whose priority is keeping America families secure. And over the past few years, we began rebuilding our military, thanks to President Trump, the guy that everyone criticizes. We were restoring our military might with new planes, new ships, new weapons, and what we're doing at Fort Sill as an example. Fort Sill is in my state of Oklahoma. Right now, we're outranged and outgunned by Russia and China. Fort Sill is leading the Army's modernization efforts on the long-range precision fire to restore our combat advantage. That's what's happening all over the country, too. So we're pulling out of this thing. Restoring our might is important, but it's not the only thing that matters. We've got to make sure that the planes and the ships and the weapons are in the right places at the right time. And that's what the NDAA does. That's what we're talking about right now. The NDAA, as I stated before, I think is the most significant bill that we have all year round, and it's actually, we passed it this would be the 60th year. And it makes sure that we have got a credible military deterrent that signals to any potential adversaries that they don't stand a chance against us. And that's what we're in the process of doing. That's what this bill is all about. We introduced and started talking about it yesterday, and we probably should have this thing prior to the 4th of July recess. We should have it passed, although that may be a little bit ambitious. So we are implementing the National Defense Strategy. That's this book that was that we're all so proud of. Bipartisan is saying what we need to do to defend America. And this document is one that we are following to the letter right now. It's our roadmap. The bill establishes the Pacific Deterrent Initiative. That's kind of patterned after the European Deterrent Initiative, which focuses resources on the Indo-Pacific, addressing key military capabilities and gaps. And that's the area that we're concentrating on right now. And that's what our document says we should be doing. And that's what we are doing with the Defense Authorization Bill. The bill ensures that we have a combat credible forward posture and helps us develop the field and joint capabilities needed to take on the conflicts envisioned by this NDS report. We push back on China's Russia and Russia's attempt to expand their influence by building new alliances and partnerships and strengthening existing ones. They're busy. They're out there. We protect against intrusion from China and Russia in space and beyond. That's what we have in the bill. That's what we're envisioning we'll be able to do. We safeguard proprietary technology and intellectual property from being infiltrated by the government of China. We also reduce our reliance on foreign countries like China as a source for a variety of materials and technologies, including some of the microelectronics and rare earth minerals, but also medical devices. Last but not least, we accelerate investment in research and development into technology that will help us catch up with China and Russia. Hypersonic weapons, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and more. We're not leading in all areas, as most people in America think we are, but we're making such great progress. Our Defense Authorization Bill last year put us way ahead of where we were before, and this bill does the same thing. So the bill sends a message, a strong message to China and Russia and anyone else who would try it. We know what you're up to. We know how to stop you. You simply can't win against us. So I encourage my colleagues to put in, to first of all, get all of their amendments in. We're trying to get our amendments all in by Friday. If we can do that, we will be able to probably get this thing done, possibly even by a week from today. So we've been working on it all year long, and this is one of the bills that we work on all year long, and we know we have a whole team working. Liz King and John Bonzo is the Republican, is the staff director, and Liz, the Democrat group, working with my partner in this. We have worked very well together, and we should have this bill done and ready to take out. And of course, let's keep in mind what we want to accomplish. We want to put our country ahead of China and Russia and get us out of this problem area that we have, an area where people, our allies, believe they're preparing for World War III. So that's what the bill is all about. We hopefully will get this thing done and have the necessary ingredients in there to put, this should be the year that we actually go ahead of China and Russia. We want to make it happen, and this is the only way to do it. With that, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.